The world sees the INFJ as the saint, the healer, the one who would never hurt a fly. But the truth is, you are the most dangerous personality type to cross. Why? Because you hide your power in plain sight. Your kindness is the bait. It's the elaborate setup for the moment you decide they are no longer worthy. Behind every gentle question, every thoughtful gesture, every moment of perfect understanding, there's a mind that's been quietly cataloging, analyzing, strategizing. We are breaking down the uncomfortable truth. Your empathy isn't a gift. It's the conscious strategy you use to know exactly where to strike. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see how your kindness is a psychological trap and how you've been setting it all along. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you are looking to achieve a deeper understanding of yourself and your personality type, click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test, the Empathy Intelligence Network. Let's start with what everyone thinks they know about INFJ empathy. You're deep listeners. You ask the right questions. You make people feel seen and understood in ways they've never experienced before. But here's what nobody talks about. Every time you're being empathetic, you're also gathering intelligence. That moment when you tilt your head and ask, "How did that make you feel?" You're not just being caring. You're conducting psychological reconnaissance. Your brain is filing away their response, noting the micro expressions, cataloging the emotional triggers, building a complete psychological profile of precisely what makes this person tick. You do this unconsciously, but let's be honest about what's really happening. When you mirror someone's emotions, when you reflect their feelings to them with perfect accuracy, you're not just connecting. You're demonstrating that you have access to their inner world in a way that feels almost magical to them. And that access, that's power. Think about how you ask questions, not the surface level, "How was your day?" but the ones that cut straight to the core. What's really bothering you about this situation? What are you not telling me? You know exactly which questions will crack someone open, which words will bypass their defenses and get them to reveal things they've never told anyone else. And once they start talking, once they start sharing their deepest fears and vulnerabilities, you're building a database. You remember everything, not just the facts, but the emotional landscape. You know that they're insecure about their intelligence, that they have daddy issues, that they're terrified of being abandoned. You file it all away, telling yourself it's because you care. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The psychological satisfaction you get from being the only one who truly understands someone isn't just about helping them. It's about being special. It's about being the chosen one, the person they turn to when everything falls apart. It's about occupying a position in their life that no one else can fill. You become addicted to being the emotional authority, the one with the answers, the one who sees what others miss. And that emotional intelligence you're so proud of, it becomes a form of power you can't resist using. Because when you understand someone completely, when you have access to their psychological blueprint, you can influence them in ways they don't even recognize. You know exactly what to say to make them feel better about themselves. You know which words will plant doubt, which phrases will guide them toward the decisions you think they should make. You're not manipulating them in any obvious way. You're just being helpful, caring, and insightful. But the result is the same. They end up doing what you want them to do, thinking it was their idea all along. The really twisted part? You genuinely believe you're helping. You tell yourself that your influence is benevolent, that you only want what's best for them. But what you want for them and what they want for themselves aren't always the same thing. And when there's a conflict, your version of what's best usually wins, because you're the one with the emotional intelligence. You're the one who really understands the situation. The Savior's Control System. Now let's talk about your compulsion to fix people. Everyone sees this as your beautiful, selfless nature. You can't stand to see someone struggling, so you swoop in to help. But let's examine what's really happening when you position yourself as someone's emotional savior. When you identify someone who needs fixing, you're not just seeing a person in pain, you're seeing an opportunity to establish psychological dominance. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that makes you indispensable. You become the solution to their problems, the answer to their prayers, the one person who can make everything better. Think about the people you've helped over the years. How many of them became dependent on your guidance? How many started coming to you for every decision, every emotional crisis, every moment of uncertainty? You created that dependency, not consciously, but systematically. You do this by positioning yourself as the emotional authority in their life. You're the one with the insights, the wisdom, the ability to see the bigger picture. When they're confused, you provide clarity. When they're hurt, you provide comfort. When they're lost, you provide direction. And slowly, gradually, they stop trusting their own judgment and start relying on yours. The genius of this system is that it doesn't look like control. It looks like love. It looks like caring, selfless service. But the result is that you've created a relationship where you hold all the power. They need you, but you don't need them. They're dependent on your validation, your approval, and your emotional support. And that gives you incredible influence over their choices, their relationships, and their entire life direction. You tell yourself you want them to be independent, to grow, to become their best selves. But watch what happens when they start making progress without you. When they solve a problem on their own, when they decide without consulting you, when they start relying on someone else for emotional support. How do you feel? Proud of their growth or threatened by their independence? If you're honest, there's often a part of you that feels displaced, unnecessary, maybe even a little betrayed, because their independence threatens your position as their savior, and unconsciously, you might start undermining that independence. Not obviously, but subtly. You might point out flaws in their decision-making, express concern about their new relationships, or remind them of past mistakes when they were flying solo. You're not trying to hurt them, you're trying to maintain your position as the indispensable one, the person they can't live without. Because being needed isn't just about helping others, it's about feeling valuable, special, and consequential. It's about having a role that makes you irreplaceable. The psychological payoff you get from being needed is intoxicating. It feeds your ego, validates your worth, and gives you a sense of purpose and importance. But it also creates a twisted incentive structure where other people's growth and independence become threats to your emotional well-being. You need them to need you. And that need will unconsciously drive you to keep them in positions where they remain dependent on your wisdom, your support, your unique understanding of their situation. This is why your helping behavior often creates more problems than it solves, because you're not really helping them become independent. You're helping them become better at being dependent on you. The judgment trap and door slam setup. Here's where your kindness reveals its most calculated nature. You present yourself as non-judgmental, accepting, and understanding. But that's not true. You're actually one of the most judgmental types in existence. You just hide it better than everyone else. You don't judge people openly. That would be too crude, too obvious. Instead, you set up invisible moral standards that exist only in your mind. Standards you never communicate, expectations you never voice, tests you never announce. And then you watch people fail them one by one. Every act of kindness you perform is actually a test. When you listen without judgment, you're testing whether they'll be vulnerable enough to trust you. When you offer help, you're testing whether they'll be grateful enough to appreciate it. When you give advice, you're testing whether they'll be wise enough to follow it. When you share something personal, you're testing whether they'll reciprocate with equal intimacy. But here's the trap. These aren't fair tests. They're designed for failure. Because your standards aren't based on reasonable human behavior. They're based on your idealized vision of how people should act, should think, should feel. And most people can't live up to your internal blueprint of moral perfection. So you collect evidence. Every time someone disappoints you, every time they fall short of your unspoken expectations, every time they prove they're not the person you thought they could be, you file it away. You maintain your caring facade. You keep being supportive and understanding, but internally, you're building a case against them. You give them chances they don't even know they're getting. You forgive transgressions they don't realize they've committed. You overlook flaws while mentally documenting them for future reference. And all the while, you tell yourself you're being patient, compassionate, understanding. But patience has limits, compassion has boundaries, understanding has breaking points. And when someone crosses that invisible line you've drawn in your mind, when they commit the final sin against your internal moral code, that's when the mask comes off. The door slam isn't an emotional outburst. It's the execution of a sentence that was passed long ago. It's the final reveal of the control game you've been playing all along. Because the kindness was conditional. The acceptance was temporary. The understanding was contingent on them eventually becoming the person you needed them to be. And when they inevitably fail to meet your impossible standards, when they prove they're just human after all, you don't just end the relationship. You annihilate it. You don't just walk away. You erase them from your existence with a finality that's breathtaking in its completeness. The most twisted part? You feel entirely justified in this brutal psychological exit. Because in your mind, you gave them every opportunity. You were patient. You were kind. You were understanding. It's not your fault they couldn't live up to basic human decency. It's not your fault they disappointed you after everything you did for them. But the truth is, you set them up to fail from the beginning. Your kindness was never unconditional. Your acceptance was never complete. Your understanding was never without judgment. You were running a long-term psychological experiment, and they were the unwitting subjects. When the experiment failed to produce the results you wanted, you didn't question your methodology. You just moved on to the following subject. The door slam isn't the end of your control. It's the final expression of it. It's your way of saying, I gave you the gift of my understanding, and you weren't worthy of it. It's the ultimate power move. Because while they're left wondering what they did wrong, you've already moved on, secure in the knowledge that you were the reasonable one, the caring one, the one who tried their best to make it work. So there it is. The uncomfortable truth about INFJ kindness. It's not pure altruism. It's not selfless love. It's a sophisticated psychological control system that you've been operating without fully acknowledging what you're doing. But here's the thing. Recognizing this doesn't make you evil. It makes you human. And more importantly, it makes you powerful. Because once you understand the strategic nature of your empathy, you can choose how to use it. The path forward isn't to stop being kind. It's to be kind consciously instead of unconsciously. To help people because you genuinely want them to thrive, not because you need to be needed. To set boundaries instead of impossible standards. To love people for who they are, not who you think they could become. Your emotional intelligence is a gift, but like any powerful tool, it can be used to build or destroy. The choice is yours. Comment and subscribe if this made you question everything you thought you knew about your own motivations. Trust me, conscious awareness beats unconscious manipulation every single time. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos, where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.